back to the Augustana Observer Podcast. I'm your host, Jaren Smith. I sat with Augie Sr. and Kavanaugh's Hilltop Bar and Grill bartender, Caitlyn Carlson, to talk about how St. Patrick's Day will be celebrated this upcoming weekend. Thank you all very much for tuning in to this episode, and I hope you all enjoy. Welcome back to the Augustana Observer Podcast. I'm your host, Jaren Smith, and I want to give my guests a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Caitlyn Carlson. I'm a senior at Augustana, and I also bartend at Kavanaugh's Hilltop.
How long have you been bartending?
I just recently, it's been about a year, as of a few weeks ago, so I actually was able to work St. Patrick's Day last year as well, but it was a little different because it was kind of during COVID, so I'm excited to see the full swing of things this year.
So what kind of got you into bartending specifically? Is it maybe interest or somebody referred to you?
Yeah, so it was actually one of my sorority sisters in Firo. Her name is Abby Harris. She is from Rock Island, and she worked at Bad Boys, which is also another owner of, the same owner of Bad Boys as the same owner as Kavanaugh's. And so she kind of did some shifts, especially for college nights on Thursdays. And so I had originally applied to Bad Boys, and then Abby said that the manager saw my application and asked if I wanted to pick up a few shifts at Cavs, and so I started bartending, and that was my first bartending job, so it kind of fell in my lap, luckily, but yeah.
Also, kind of by my understanding for St. Patrick's Day for Cavs, I understand in years past and this year, they kind of go all out. Can you kind of tell me some of the things that Cavs does?
Yeah, so it's an all-day event, and it's the biggest day of the year. And so bar opens at 8 a.m. on Saturday, and there's the parade that goes on. So usually it picks up a little bit after the parade, but there's the bar. There's two bars inside, so one in the main bar, one on the landing, and then there's also a big, humongous tent that they set up in the parking lot, and that has a VIP area. There's also usually bands that perform both on the landing and in the tent, and then there's another just regular bar with beer cans and cooler shots and stuff like that. So
since starting at Cavs and then now being here for Bad Cavs a little bit over a year, what does being able to work at Cavs on St. Patrick's Day mean to you specifically?
It definitely, so obviously, last year, I was still new to Cavs, so I didn't really know anyone, and I was still kind of getting in the swing of bartending and learning how to do the system, all that. This year, I feel it'll be a lot more fun just because I have gotten to know a lot of the townies and the regulars, so which I never thought would happen. But so it'll be fun to see them, and everybody's just gonna. I know everybody's gonna be going all out, and it'll just be fun to be a part of, and yeah, makes a good opportunity to make some money too. So,
what would you say is one of your favorite things that happens on, say either St. Patrick's Day itself at Cavs or the day of the parade?
I definitely like all of the bands because they definitely give you a variety of different bands. I think we have three planned, three main ones planned for this year, and it just brings some livelihood, and a lot of the bands that have performed at Cavs in the past, whether that be just for random weekends or other events. So it's nice to have those people back and be able to have everyone enjoy the music.
Backtracking just a little bit, if I remember correctly, you mentioned Bad Boys is also owned by the owner of Cavs.
Yes.
So I was wondering, is the owner of Cavs, is he of where do you know where the interest in St. Patrick's Day comes for the owner?
So Cavs is there's three different owners of Cavs. So one of the owners, his name's Tim Kavanaugh. His dad was the previous owner, but since he's gotten a little older, then his son Tim has taken over the business. And obviously Kavanaugh's just an Irish bar in general.
Right.
And so this has been a very, very long-lasting event that has happened for years and has always been crazy. And then there's another owner. His name's Scott Hancock. And I personally have never really he's not around too much because he kind of just does more of like the behind the scenes stuff. But he is also the owner of Bad Boys.
Okay.
Bad Boys there's one in Moline and there's one in Davenport.
Okay.
And there's it's pizza and there's another bar in there too, and so there isn't really much connection between those two in St. Patrick's Day, but I think just the tradition of Kavanaugh's in general has made that event go on year after year.
I understand. Can you tell me a little bit more kind of about the party? I did a little research, and by my understanding, it's called the Shamrockin' Patty O Party. I believe it's the 11th annual party from what I've seen on some flyers or on Facebook and social media. I understand you've only been there for a year, but can you kind of tell me how you've maybe learned how it's changed over time?
Yeah, so I know COVID kind of made it a little, kind of put it on a pause a little bit, because obviously people weren't really willing to go out as much and guidelines and all of that. So it has kind of died down the last few years, but I think now since we're kind of moving past COVID, they are really excited and really expecting it to be a lot of people, just hundreds of people in the parking lot, in the bar, shoulder to shoulder. I'm not entirely sure how it was in previous years. All I've really heard from just talking to regulars about it and other staff that it's been just crazy, especially when the weather's warm. But last year was pretty chilly. This year is going to be pretty cold. A little warmer.
So it's going to be cold on Saturday?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I think it's 20s or 30s. So it'll be, there's heaters in the tent outside, but also we'll see how warm that keeps us. But yeah.
So the next question I wanted to ask is, because I understand that Cavs is right within a minute of Eric's in here. So really just during your time here at Augustana, and do you know how Cavs has always played a role in the Augustana student body, which don't want to really refer to just Erickson, we'll say juniors and seniors, upperclassmen. What has your experience been like that through a student?
Yeah, so actually as a student, so honestly, Cavs wasn't really it was a thing obviously always, but for college students, I know from past alumni and regulars who I've talked to that have gone to Augustana themselves have talked about how they've gone to Cavs a lot in their years. But also I feel from my Augustana experience, Cavs was never really a topic until this last year. And I know Brandon's down the hill was super popular, especially for Thursdays. But I think the convenience of the location of Cavs really helps. There's also very cheap prices, quick service. So all of that has kind of made the the popularity rise, and just a lot of people now come to Cavs whether any day of the week, and yeah.
Because if there's anything I've learned as a college student, just whether it be at Cavs or different areas where different days of the week might mean a different thing, whether it be specials or anything. But are there any specials that are throughout the week or maybe special to St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, so St. Patrick's Day, I think, so food-wise, going on a different track. So food-wise, St. Patrick's Day, there's a limited menu, and it's stuff that is obviously Irish themed. So there's corned beef. There's there will be hot dogs, brats, sausages, stuff like that. But then there also will be Irish nachos, leprechaun balls, but I'm not really entirely sure what those are. But he's got some stuff planned, and his food is super, super really good. And
it sounds really
good.
And
he just started recently at the beginning of the year, so we're excited to see how his first St. Patty's Day at Cavs goes. But as for specials for St. Patty's Day, I think it's kind of limited menu, beer menu especially, just based off depending on where you are. So VIP will have a full bar in the tent, and that's like people had to pay for passes to be able to drink in there. And then on the other side of the tent is just like cooler shots and beer cans. And then there's like the full bar inside and outside. And so it kind of just depends where you can get in and where like, but I'm not entirely sure if the prices have changed. I haven't looked too deep into that. But yeah. And then for just like regular week to week specials, we have happy hour 2 to 5. So that's for like cheaper domestic cans and bottles, and then $3 cooler shots, so like Fireball, menthol, stuff like that. And then on Tuesdays there's $3 import beers. On Wednesdays there's like $1 off 16-ounce cans. And then Thursdays is $1 off drafts, and like specifically for college night, we do $2 wells. So like just like bar vodka, bar whiskey, stuff like that. So that's $1 off for the college students, and then $1 PBR, which is always a big hit. So yeah.
What would you say is a big hit from what you've noticed through Augustana students that go there, whether they be people that you may know yourself or just people that maybe might have to show their like Augustana ID? Like, what would you say is popular among the Augustana students that you know that have gone to Cavs?
Like drink wise, or just like
it can be anything.
Like okay, so I mean I know since it is right next to like the soccer and lacrosse field. A lot of times during the weekends when there's home games, we'll have a lot of parents and families come in to get some food after the game or get some drinks before the game, stuff like that. That happens pretty, like, especially when it's warm outside, too. It'll pick up. College students, I definitely see mostly on Thursdays, but sometimes I'll see, like, during big events like homecoming week or stuff like that. Like, there was a sorority party for Delta Chi that they had at Cavs that I worked during homecoming week. And so they had, like, a bunch of alumni come, and so that was really fun. And then a lot of times people will just like hang out in the back, watch some sports, and just eat and drink, and yeah.
I understand. And say those are pretty much all the questions that I really had. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Come to Cavs on Saturday. That's all I got. And have a good St. Patty's Day weekend.
All right. I just wanted to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you sitting down with me, kind of teaching me a little bit more about St. Patrick's Day at Cavs. Also, to anyone who is 21 years or older, make sure you come to Cavs and have a good time, because it'll be a great time. And thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. I wanted to thank you all for listening to this St. Patrick's Day edition of the Augustana Observer Podcast. I'm your host, Jaren Smith, and I hope you all enjoy your St. Patrick's Day.